now moved to these large language models, my brand and brand content is being recommended there. So the content still plays a value, but it's about how we analyze the success of it and what it's doing. So let's look at that a little bit in practice. And when we sort of focus in on that and we think about blogs and the traditional marketing playbook, I create content, I bring traffic to my website, that traffic, sorry, I missed the stage. I create content, that content is visible on search, I bring traffic to my website, that traffic takes an action. So this is very much the classic model, and we've been working this way for years. But as I touched on at the start, we need to think of this now as a much, much less linear and kind of straightforward playbook and a far less straightforward journey. And some of these things are what are becoming more and more prevalent that you can see on the screen. So kind of trust signals, brand authority, content quality, local relevance, and how all of that plays into AI and AI search. So interestingly, when you start to look at what kind of metrics we track when we're looking at success on large language models, when we're looking at how brands are performing, so many of these quite old school marketing angles are kind of more important than ever. So what reviews have we got off-site has become even more important. Things like Google Business Reviews, Trustpilot, Capterra, if you're in a SaaS brand or whatever. Have I got good reviews across all these channels? Because the AI models are going to massively crawl all of these trust signals. So when people are searching, what's the best company in Cheltenham to look after, to do, HR consultancy, they're going to be looking at websites and web content, but the off-site channels are so prevalent to play into that model. Who's been referred? Who's been recommended? What are the reviews for that brand? We're seeing in kind of B2B and in the software or the tech space a significant increase in inquiries for businesses that are coming from all over the country. Brands that want to do national targeting and are achieving it more than ever before. And it's because of search habits when people are going to models like ChatGPT now, even in the B2B space, and they're asking for recommendations, and AI is giving a very different recommendation to what Google would have done traditionally. So all of those traditional tactics to remain visible and be top of search on Google, AI is sort of taking it to another level. So something to think about is, what's the relevance, the authority, the brand, backlinks, digital PR, all of these lovely kind of SEO tactics that we've been doing for a while, but that also now feed into that AI playbook, but in a slightly different way. So it's far more multi-layered and it's far less linear, and we'll talk you through some journey examples of that in a moment. So how has that changed? What does that really mean? So search used to reward optimization. So it was, Google brought out these algorithm updates like education and authority on the site. How are we communicating keywords and showing, what it is that we do? But now it more heavily rewards credibility. So businesses that show up consistently as helpful and trustworthy across the web are the ones that stay visible. So how are they referred to in social? How are they referred to in reviews? What's their backlink profile? Are they getting links from reputable sources? Link building massively feeds into AI search. Reddit, and how important Reddit is now for ChatGPT, for example. Now, Reddit, an online internet forum. But actually, we're recommending that brands get a profile, start doing conversations, be part of the conversation, question and answers on Reddit, especially if you're looking to build a community around your brand, because large language models will pull in all of that information to help recommend your brand on AI search. And it's actually a key player in terms of how it's being read. So Reddit is becoming far more prevalent for a large number of organizations now as well. So let's talk about that a little bit in practice in terms of the kind of the old journey and what a new journey might look like. So that old journey was kind of intent and awareness. You're building that awareness, you're starting to generate an intent, you know what it is that you're looking for. You start to do that heavy comparison in search, so you're investigating mid-funnel informational searches. What's the best brand for this? How do I go about doing this? All of that research and discovery was happening in that traditional search manner. And then that stage 3 is the click, the evaluate. You're heavily digesting brand content. You're looking at brand content on the website before you then make a decision. You either exit and go elsewhere, or you take an action. And it's a straightforward route. But we need to now think about this as multiple stages and multiple different touch points within those stages. So stage 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, which I'll talk about in a moment, are all happening before people have even visited a website. The website visit is coming much further down the funnel, is what we're now seeing. The website is a validation, a reinforcement, a confirmation at that final stage before you take action. But the way that you're digesting information in all of these stages happens in so many other places before you even go to visit a website. So the stage 1 in this new journey is all about kind of awareness and understanding, and again, conversational search. And that might then move towards a more passive exposure. So think about brands that are now investing more in advertising. Literally this year, AI search is going to launch ads. So that's the first time. So previously, we've pumped all our budget into PPC, into Google ads, and we want to be visible on Google search. We might want to be visible on YouTube, but they're starting to roll out in beta mode ads on AI. So you can imagine where that's going to go, where we're going to start to see, let's say you've asked ChatGPT some questions, you've done a bit of research, you've shown an interest. You're going to start to get brand exposure on ChatGPT potentially through ads based on your search history before your further organic touch points. So again, all of that is now happening before you might have even gone through, visited a brand, visited a website. Then obviously comes conversational discovery, where we are much more in that two-way kind of conversation flow. And that's where we want our brand to be referenced and we want our brand to be mentioned. And when you go, if you download the AI optimization checklist that I shared with you earlier, there's things in there about how to better optimize your content to then be visible and cited and mentioned in AI search. I mean, some that I'll just throw out are that AI search absolutely loves statistics. It loves stats. So if you've got stats as an organization and you can say, last year we identified that 20% of businesses didn't have their connectivity in shape because blah, 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 get that in your content because AI absolutely loves it. The other thing about how AI crawls content is traditional search sort of looks at the whole piece of content and focuses in on keywords and sections and answers and FAQs and pulls things in. Large language models like to have structured content that makes absolute sense in isolation. So do you remember, like in school, they'd always say when you did an exam, it was like, write the question as if you're writing the answer. You know, always write the answer in the question, that sort of thing. It's a little bit like that. So when you're building out your information, your mid-funnel content, think about it in sections and go, am I really staying laser focused on the topic? Am I giving clarity in all these different paragraphs about what this is all relating to and how it relates back? There's tactics and things like that that you can start to implement, and it's just a shift in how we optimize copy. The traditional SEO tactics still stand. We want to be educational, we want to be authoritative, we want to show that we're a trustworthy source. But there's also some structural nuances, and especially some of the things I've mentioned, such as statistics, that are really valuable. And some brands are now shifting their copywriting and their content journey with a much higher focus on what they need to do to be visible in large language models than being visible on Google. Because over the last 6 to 8 months, we've seen a real increase in traffic and engagement from these large language models, and it's only compounding. Even for big brands that have big traffic, they might only start at 10 or 20, but next month it's 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 150. So we're only seeing that going in one direction at the moment. So that mid stage where you then start to have social media, peer validation, and you're in this kind of conversational search and discovery is the stage that's probably the most important for brands, because it's probably the one they've got covered the least, but where there's the most opportunity. And you're still an early adopter. So if you're thinking about optimizing for large language models and generating more traffic from there, then you're still quite early on in that journey. Then obviously comes consideration, heavy retargeting, ads and content across the whole landscape, followed by taking an action. But the actual web and website engagement comes far lower down in this journey. So it's no longer necessarily that early touch point. Think about how it acts to validate what are the trust signals, what's the content, what's on there when people come to the website, but an anticipation that they come further down the funnel now than perhaps they did previously. And some average stats around there being kind of 15 touch points across 6 different channels before you even get a conversion. So think about those channels and how you play in that. Is there anything you wanted to add on that side of things, or on the?
No, I guess, it's just making sure that, I know it can seem quite overwhelming, but it really is kind of this kind of search everywhere, and it's all kind of working together. These aren't silos. All of your kind of efforts are joining together, and I think that is a really key message. I think marketing has been saying it for a really long time, but I guess AI has made us really kind of accelerate it and make sure that we are kind of aligning and not just working in silo and all working together.
100%. So what does that look like in practice? So search behavior is becoming much more conversational. So people now having these two-way conversations. So it's not questions, it's not keywords, it's this back and forth. And AI tools provide the answers, that should say, before a website visit, which changes when and why someone clicks through. So the website isn't always the destination, it's often the proof point. So for example, recommend a well-regarded corporate and commercial property law firm in Cheltenham. Now previously, after that touch point, people would start visiting your website. If you're going to be visible, if you're going to be prevalent, if you're going to be top of search, the whole point is we want to be in the top 3 of Google for that term, ideally top of search, so that when people are asking those kind of questions, they're going to click through, and then our brand will do the talking. Our blogs, our informational content, our trust signals on the site. But this is only going to lead to more question and answers. This is the beginning of a conversation where actually 3rd, 4th, 5th question can be coming after this. Where are they based? What areas of commercial and property law do they specialize in? Why should I choose this bit? All of that is happening now before they even go to your website. So even just as a test case, it's worth starting to investigate. And again, I wouldn't trust it. And we always say, don't Google yourself, but get on these tools and have a little explore. Look at who's coming up. Look at what types of conversations and responses you're getting, because you might be surprised. You might be pleasantly surprised, or you might be disappointed when you believe that you should be very much in the mix for some of this this type of query, and your brand currently isn't visible. Because remember, there might now be 3, 4, 5 actions taken on that large language model, and your brand may never have shown, and you'll never be in the mix, whereas you could still be top of Google. But perhaps this person, the first time they go to Google is when they then search brand. So if they've had a lovely response and they're getting these answers and it recommends, for example, BPE, then people might even click through from ChatGPT or go to Google and search BPE. Yeah. And at no point have they done an informational search behavior on Google. And the interesting thing about that is that traffic, that in your reporting might even get bucketed up as somebody that came from Google. You might not even show where ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever played into the picture of the journey. But it's a consideration in terms of that shift in habit, and that we're only going to see more of it.
Dan, does that mean like the old way of where you get people to a landing page or a website, it used to happen quicker, it's happening.
Yeah.
And you may have gated content, so you want to
Yep.
capture it. Is that becoming a bit old hat now? Because
Yeah.
that information in the gated content needs to be out in the
Correct.
ecosystem much earlier, is that right?
That's the old playbook, exactly that, is you get people in early, you get them landing, you deliver gated content. Now, things like gated content are still really, really prevalent. I'm sure it won't surprise anybody that when you click through to download the AI optimization guide I talked about, you're going to pump in an email address, right? And then that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to be completely transparent about that, because that's how it works. And I still think that these things have a role to play, and a role to play in the journey, but I think that we can't be too reliant on it as a typical route and a typical tactic, and it's about how that all feeds through. Because when we're then looking at brand visibility, brand engagement, previously we'd have looked at what was the traffic volume, what were the number of engagements on the website, whereas now we're introducing new metrics. We're saying how many positive citations, how many citations did you get on large language models? How many positive referrals did you get? How many brand mentions did you get last month? Did you get 100, 150, 500 brand mentions? And we do competitor analysis where we look at other organizations and say, well, they're currently appearing 1,000 times last month. They appeared in large language model search. You only appeared 100. So it's less about what keywords and are you visible. It's, is your brand being referenced, positively mentioned? Because all of that two-way engagement is, again, before they've even gone through to Google, let alone gone through to your website. So the role of how it all works together is definitely changing.
I was going to say, and if you're thinking, I'm a bit confused, how do I find this out? next month we will kind of go in.
I find it weird you're looking at me. Right?
Yeah, I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but it will be covered next month as well. So.
Yeah, we'll go into a bit more about how you stay visible and the type of tactics you can put in place. So this kind of connects with this, Dave. So, why measurement needs to change. So traffic and clicks are only really showing you part of that journey. They're showing your on-site behavior, but AI discovery often happens off-site, and brands can influence decisions without generating a visit. So if you're working with an SEO specialist or a marketing team or an in-house team, I spoke to somebody anecdotally at the start who said, they're giving me reports on traffic. Have a think about, you may well have seen that traffic drop off a cliff over the last 12 months. And rather than perhaps accepting the answer, that's just AI search, so habits have changed. Well, where do we go with that? Okay, so if that's dropped, where are we now visible? Are we now appearing on these large language models? If so, how much? How much is our brand being referenced? How are we replacing that lost traffic? Because we can't just ignore that lost traffic because it's significant. So we need to think about the full impact, not just that sort of traditional search metrics. So this is what I've just kind of touched upon, but in terms of kind of measurement in that AI search landscape, we look at citations and sources used by AI tools. So that's when things are cited, brands are referenced, brands are mentioned on kind of ChatGPT. You've got those brand mentions across platforms, and then sentiment, because it's no good just to be mentioned, is it positive sentiment? And there are tools now that you can literally measure the sentiment of references. So is it always positive feedback? Because some brands could have negative. I'm sure if you went online and said, what's the worst restaurant in Cheltenham, ChatGPT would be really confident in giving you 5 that it would suggest that not where you want to go, right? Whereas previously you might have had to figure that out yourself a little bit through TripAdvisor and your own research. So you need to think about the type of sentiment, the type of reference. So it's not just about being mentioned. Is it positive? And all of that tells us whether AI trusts your brand. And that's what's really interesting when organizations are starting to get that increase in inquiries from AI. It's telling me just off the bat that there's that positive sentiment on these AI tools about the brand. Interestingly, and this is just us as a digital agency, we've obviously had a significant increase in what I would call cold inquiries ourselves from AI search, from national brands that are looking for perhaps experts in certain sectors or with deep expertise. And previously they would have had to have dug all of that out and researched that themselves. So if they were a tech brand, they'd have to really do their research into who do I need to go looking for to work with that has a lot of expertise in the tech sector, for example. Whereas our site is full of signals and content and information about that. And ChatGPT can research that in a flash. So then when somebody goes to a large language model and says, which digital agency do I want to be speaking with to help launch my new SaaS product, then you're going to come up top, full stop, without any informational research, and you're competing on a national landscape. So again, that's just in a moment how we can start to see that shift really, especially if the signals are there for your brand and you've got the right messages across channels. Traditional focus, clicks, traffic volume, rankings, this newer kind of emerging focus, brand mentions, citation frequency, and positive brand sentiment. And we need to start to how all of that kind of layers together, and it's looking at that whole analysis of data and brand engagement as well. So this is the type of world that we need to start thinking about, and how we equip ourselves for search on those in those channels and in those ways. So what can we expect this to change over the coming months? So we're going to get this fragmented discovery now. So large language models, they're citing data from a variety of external platforms. They're making sure you're showing up, increasing that chance that you become the answer to someone's query. So it's that broken, fragmented research and discovery, which was far more linear and straightforward, and now much less so. Just hands up, and you mentioned it a little bit, are others aware of, have they seen a shift in website behavior or traffic volumes over the last 12 months in terms of brands coming to, there's lots of nods, so we're seeing that. And when you think about it, 50%, it's not, let's say traffic dropped by 50%, let's just throw that out there. Let's say your informational traffic dropped by 50%. That doesn't mean that there's 50% less marketplace demand, 50% less interest, 50% less engagement. That's all just shifted somewhere else. So that's where you do need to be thinking about, is my focus in the right area? Or am I still focused on that and the drop and how I get it back? Because the truth is you might not get it back. So it's about, why has that dropped? What can we attribute that to? And do we need to look elsewhere for how we replace and replicate some of that activity that we did previously? And again, that'll help kind of shift your focus. Again, that rise in kind of, rather than even doing their own research. So again, how every channel now plays its part in that overall visibility is massively important. So that shift in customer journey is there, and it's very, very real. And there's two key shifts that we're going to see now this year. And one is very much this chat to checkout. So everything I've talked to about there, where I've said that, engaging with on-site content much less, expect that whole middle section to be far, far more accelerated. So it's from conversation right the way through to checkout. Now, what you then need to think about is the role of your website in this journey, because your website still plays a massively important role in all of this, but just in a slightly different way than how it did before. So with everything I've said, if I've said, maybe previously your website would have been the third touch point, now it's going to be the 6th, the 8th, maybe even the 9th. Have a think about what your content plan actually is on your website, so that when users are coming in and they're a bit further down the funnel, what is it that they're actually being met with? What are we bringing to the fore? Is it actually gated content and lead magnets, but that much more tackle the consumer interest further down the funnel, trust signals, what it's like to work together? What's your hero message on your website? What are the key language that you're getting towards the top that previously was all about early funnel? Is it now much further down the funnel? Have you got reviews and insight and all these lovely things baked into your site so that you're actually convincing people to take that action when they're a bit further down the funnel and they've already got a sentiment of your brand? And then the other thing is obviously this shift to AI advertising. So this is really something significant to consider going into this year. At the moment, ChatGPT, for example, is a bit of a holy grail of organic content. You do all the best practice things that we're starting to talk about, your brand's going to come up top. But we need to think about how AI advertising is actually going to change that. So on Google, for years, Google Ads has pushed down organic listings. So often we have to scroll 2, maybe 3 times just to get to the first organic search result. Well, at the moment, when we go on a large language model, we're getting those organic responses and that organic content straight away. And we are for now. But what we need to think about is where ads are going to play a part in that. So if you're investing in Google Ads, if you're investing in PPC, either in the display network or across traditional search, you will need to start thinking about budget and budget assignment, and do you actually need to think about other large language models or placements for your ad spend, as opposed to just being completely native to that traditional channel, because that is going to definitely change things over the current months and into this year. Fab. I think what Prue's going to do now is a poll. Is that right? I think we've got a Slido that we're going to get a sense on some challenges and then open it up into questions and discussion as well and get into some specifics. Did you want to do that with the room? Yes, if you could scan. Good job. Next month we're... Yeah. 100%.
It's interesting though. Love a bit of market research. Has everyone done that one? Shall we move on to the next?
Should we just talk? Is it worth just talking through this quickly?
Yeah. I can actually see.
So interestingly, around 20%, so kind of 2 in every 10 of us at the moment is not sure where we're losing visibility. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? Is it's like taking it a step back and going, I'm not actually aware of kind of where we are in this landscape and what we're visible for. And again, a little bit like what Heather kind of mentioned at the start, the important thing here is making sure that we're considering the right channels. What is the behavior of our market? What do we expect? Where do we expect them to be? Because some of the shifts that we've talked about are going to impact some brands more than others. Some might still have a slightly more traditional search habit for some time, even if it continues to evolve. So the important thing is to sort of try and understand the landscape and the user behavior, and where are our customers finding us, or where do we want our customers to find us, and how do we then analyze where we sort of stand in that. And next month we'll talk a little bit around some of the tactics that you can actually adopt to look at where you know, to better understand where you appear in that search landscape. Interestingly, people feel that they've got social nailed. We're visible on social platforms. That's not really where we want to focus our attention. But again, the kind of AI search and generative tools is where we're the least visible right now, which in itself shows that this is an important area that that we need to address kind of going into the next year, really. Fab. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. Okay, how confident are you that your brand shows up accurately in AI search experiences? So do you even know if have you guys tested it out? No. Interesting. Pretty sure it was like one of the first things people did when Google came out was Google themselves. So I think you guys need to AI yourselves.
But what do you search? Do you search like the questions that your customers are asking, or do you search your brand name, or both?
But I guess both, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
See what comes up, because if you kind of want to know what people are what comes up when people search things. So you would want to know if you're coming up for certain search questions, right? Certain services that you offer. So that would be a good way. But then I would be interested to see what comes out when I type in my company name, or what is already there. And I think if you don't have tools, it's a good way. It's a good start. It's a good starting point if you don't have tools.
Just have a conversation with it, and put yourselves in the shoe of the customer. It's a challenge. Like at the agency, obviously, we use tools to track AI search, AI visibility, AI brand sentiment. It's a challenging one because phraseology is so nuanced. People could ask so many, one question in 1,000 different ways. But there's ways with tools of like bucketing that up so that it's on themes and topic themes, and how much the brand present for that. But as Prue was saying, even just having an explore of that kind of two-way conversation and seeing the type of referral recommendation and citations that you're getting can help kind of feed into it.
So perhaps would it be a good idea to get like a group of people to actually search your company? So it's not just you, because everybody asks questions in different ways.
Yeah, like
so
a focus
group
group.
of people in your business or your friends or your family as well, to sort of say, actually, can you just chat GPT us and see what's said, what's being said, and then you've got a variety, because people in your own sector are very much likely to ask the same question. But it's people outside of that, other people that you want to draw into your business, you need to know how they search.
That's where that happens to the public.
Yeah.
It's a great tool, that.
Yeah, great tool. Pinch of salt.
It's not so good as when
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
we've used it and it
Try the
That's
keyword
interesting.
finder. Try the keyword
KW Finder.
Yeah.
And you get a couple of free searches on that a day.
Yeah.
You can have paid accounts and things as well. But KW Finder we use, don't we?
but
Mangle.
the public used
Yeah.
to be really
It did, yeah.
It got bought out by a chap called Neil Patel, who buys a lot of like marketing tools, and then I think he tends to put his stamp on it, and it all becomes about. It's not always the best, but it used to be a great tool. Yeah.
No, I know, because we did, one of our directors wanted to do some keywords that
Right.
paid with these words, and I put it in there, and it just
Yeah.
as a film.
Yeah, sometimes it
Oh,
can.
that's it, auto-suggest, because we use auto-suggest,
Yeah.
which isn't sorted now either. But we put something in, I can't remember what it was a few years ago, and it was everybody's the answer was everyone asking about Phil.
Mm,
So we'll don't waste our money on that, because he was going to do it, because he's an attorney, and the way he thinks is very different from everybody else. And we would have wasted hundreds and hundreds of euros.
Yeah.
for this.
I think that's the key. The key is really understanding who your customers are and the psyche of those customers.
Absolutely.
So traditional marketing is always about finding out who your customers are and then making sure your brand is visible in their everyday journey.
Yeah.
So you understand where they are. And now we're just taking that traditional high street thing into a digital
Correct.
world. So how does your customer doom scroll? What platforms are they going through? How do they search for information? And it's once you understand that, it's then making sure that you're present in those channels and those avenues. So it really does come back to really understanding who your customers are, because we will all have very different customers, so some of our channels will need to be different. And as a marketeer, it's never about just having a single source of advertising, it's about those integrated campaigns.
Yeah.
You do a lot on that. That's what I was going to say.
I lined it up for you.
The interesting thing on that as well is it's what we've talked about for years in terms of the foundations of like marketing, and I would argue it's come full circle in that it's become more prevalent again, because with like AI amplification, like what we're seeing a lot more now as well is if you adopt tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, and you've got kind of sales and marketing platforms. HubSpot, for example, has launched a huge amount of baked-in AI so that you could be doing more personalized style of communications, email marketing, content, campaigns. Now, in order for that to be good and effective, you need to get your customer profile right. Who am I speaking to? How do we speak to them? What's our brand tone of voice? Where do we resonate with them? And if we can anticipate a future, if we just take a bit of blue sky thinking, where over the next 5 to 10 years, whether we like it or not, there is going to be a significant increase in AI adoption, AI usage. We need to get all of that absolutely right, because otherwise we fall foul of bad practice, because we're not giving these tools the knowledge that we have. So that's just something that we need to start thinking about a bit more as marketers when we're putting things in the hands of other channels. Right now, I had a conversation in the office on Monday, because you can spot, or I certainly can, a lot of people can.
Yeah,
you can spot a lot of ChatGPT language a mile off. Rule of 3, hyperbole, exaggerated statements. I scroll my LinkedIn feed, and every day I get met with, this was not just a breakfast, this was a gathering of minds ready to run. And I'm like, you didn't write that. Brands are announcing, promotions, launches, massive years, and the whole thing's been written with ChatGPT. And I think we're going to get better at that, where I think that you won't be able to tell after a period. You just won't, not if we adopt it correctly. But it's the sort of thing that we need to start thinking about. But how confident are you that your brand shows up accurately in AI-powered search experiences? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Because obviously ChatGPT and large language models are really brilliant and useful for sparking ideas or content. Fantastic. But if somebody just writes loads of their content taken straight from ChatGPT, does AI recognize itself when assessing you?
Absolutely.
And trust itself to give that person information?
Does it trust itself?
When somebody asks about you, do they say, this is us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing, I often used it until, it was not in this deck, but I had an anonymized screenshot of a brand that came to us whereby, it was early last year or the end of the year before, their traffic literally dropped off a cliff, and it wasn't to do with the change in search habit, it was to do with the fact that they pumped a huge amount of AI generated language onto the website. Now this brand, it turns over tens of millions, has traffic volume in the hundreds of thousands into the millions, right? So when they lose traffic by 30, 40, 50%, you can imagine that is, it is all hands on deck. Now they came to us at the point whereby it had tanked, and it was because they'd launched an international strategy to have various languages on the website. So it was a multi-language, hreflang. The whole site was built to target France, Germany, Belgium, Europe, and I think further afield as well. But the point is that it dropped off a cliff, and the team had to undo and reverse it. And the biggest impact of that was, or cause of that, was that they'd used AI-generated content. And it was around that time that Google had brought out an algorithm update to better identify AI language and AI search. There's tools out there, some are free, and I think even Grammarly do stuff where it's like plagiarism checkers, where you can pump things in and say, is this generated by AI? And it gives you like a 60, 70%, yes, this looks like it was. I read some, my wife put a letter together for something, and I read it, and I thought, that's a really good letter. And it was actually in the style that I would write, and it doesn't come that naturally to her, but I read it and I went like, that's probably how I would approach it. But then interestingly, I looked at it again and I thought, she's used AI for that. And I pumped it through something, and it came back with like a 90% likelihood. So I went back to her, I said, that's a great letter, but you've got to be really mindful that somebody else might be looking at, and you want to make it authentic. So I would suggest that brands need to be very sensitive about how they approach it. And I think that AI is incredibly powerful as a soundboard, as an inspiration, as a trigger, as a research tool, as opposed to just simply saying, write me a 500-word.
Because you've even got like LinkedIn goes, would you like us to write your post on AI? So, you know, you kind of, I don't trust those sorts of things anyway, but,
No.
you know, it's embedded in so much of what we do now.
Have you seen the meme? I think that's a great meme where it's the guy saying to ChatGPT, can I eat this mushroom? So
Right.
ChatGPT says yes. Then the next scene is he's actually in hospital. And he's like, he says to ChatGPT, you didn't tell me it was toxic. And he said, well, you didn't ask.
You didn't ask that,
How,
yeah.
you know, refining and researching and really targeting your questions and changing and all that
Yeah.
stuff as well. So
I think
The
so.
other thing is as well, I can't remember if it was somebody from one of these, but they said they were doing a tender, and one of the questions, every response was practically the same because it had been written.
Oh, yeah, off the shelf,
And they kicked everybody out.
There you go, yeah. Do you know when you're talking about tenders, if you've got your AI process in place and you've got your setup where you're not sharing confidential information and there's certain things you're happy to give to AI, a really useful tactic I think for marketers and salespeople is to get AI to do quick analysis or comparisons for you. So hypothetically, let's say you've had an invitation to tender and you've had a 5 to 10 page brief document and you and your team have spent a week building your response. You know, the tender document might even have scoring criteria. You can pump them both into AI, say, can you crawl these and report back to me, you know, give me a score out of 100%, how we've tackled this tender. Are there any gaps or shortfalls? Are there any areas we need to consider? And then that's where it's doing that deep kind of research and analysis work to better equip your team. Then it'll come back to you and say, well, actually, I'll give you 100% on this, but you didn't tackle this area. Have a little think about that. And then you go back to your team, and that's when the humans come into play again, and they go, right, let's sort this out, as opposed to just getting ChatGPT to write it. So again, I think if you use it in this kind of assistant, agentic kind of way, that's where it's really powerful, as opposed to, you know.
About rewards, one of the things that we've seen is it's really obvious which entries have used ChatGPT to do their reward entries, and it's dull. So I would say if you are going to use it as a tool, and that is what it is a tool.
And then make it
and
more
then
human.
Go back and make sure you've got your authentic self coming through, because those ones actually stand out.
Yeah.
They are easier to read and more believable than the ones that are clearly ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it is more than just like M dashes and arrows. It's that some of that stuff I said about the hyperbole and the type of language that we're humans, right? We're all pretty clued on to be able to start to see signals and signs and read things and go, that's not authentic. That's, you know, yeah.
In the question and the answers all just
sort of come out. Yeah.
We need a power cut, don't we?
Say again.
We need a power cut.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Well, we're running out of power. We haven't got enough power.
Yeah. So I think, interestingly, obviously, we're not very confident that our brand is sort of showing up accurately in AI-powered search experiences. So again, you know, I think we're still just collectively in this sort of learning phase. Some aren't aware, and I think that's, again, really important. It comes back to that previous slide. You know, how do we discover, find out, and understand where we sit in this landscape? But yeah, others that are not very confident will think that we've got a bit of work to do. So again, we'll that AI search optimization checklist, take a look at that, and we'll go through some of these specifics next session as well. Did you want to do the other one?
Yeah, one more, I think. Cool. What is the biggest challenge stopping you from adapting to the future of search? That's glad we can expose.
So interestingly, we're very much warming towards that we sort of understand this shift, which is great now, and this kind of future of search, but we haven't really acted yet. Some are still in that perhaps learning and discovery phase where we're sort of trying to understand, we're trying to adapt, or we're just learning about this stuff for the first time. But as I say, the good news is we're still relatively early adopters in terms of the approach to this. You're early to the game. There are so many brands that wouldn't have even scratched the surface with some of this stuff, even bigger brands. and kind of international players that are behind in terms of their AI and AI search visibility. I'm interested if anybody wanted to just kind of chat freely about what. There's so many reasons, right, that can feed into this. It could be down to resource, team, budget, understanding. It'd be great if anybody wanted to share. I guess it comes back a little bit to the barriers or where we are in this journey, and if anybody wanted to kind of chat around that.
Time.
Yeah.
Like,
Time.
There's not enough
Yeah.
time in the day to do all of the things that we do at C2S. There isn't.
And then learn about this new
Yeah.
stuff coming
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
And
I mean, because one of my questions was, because our website is huge, as I've said, as well as what we offer to our members, is that we promote on our social media. Nearly half of what we do isn't about C2S.
yeah,
So like our website is 900 pages. I don't even know if half of them will be
about C2S
about
content.
C2S.
Yeah, it's a
Each
good
member's
point.
got their page. They have their own member offer page. There's all the news stories, vacancies, and so on. So it's really hard. I think I understand this, but how is this going to work in our situation? Because then with LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the social channels, again, we post a lot for our members. It's not actually about C2S. And then when we do, again, I will be honest, I use ChatGPT a lot. I get lazy with it because there's not enough time to write a whole post, and I'm churning out 3 or 4 a day, 5 days a week, along with everything else that we do, to write everything or even use it as inspiration and then rewrite it. It's really quite difficult to have enough time in the day to do everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I think I can talk from a social media perspective. In terms of social media, okay, a couple of years ago it was probably like content. You know, it's quantity over quality. Bit of good news for you. It's starting to change a bit more now. So rather than getting 7 posts out a week, or your 25 or your 125 or whatever it is, it's actually what's important, like what is going to resonate with your target audience. So you might not have to worry about posting, 7 times a week, but maybe you post one post that addresses a pain point, the question that people are asking around C2S. So maybe it's actually like, I feel your pain, you feel like you're just on this wheel.
Yeah.
That's a different. There's our message.
Yes.
That's completely different.
To the
Then there's all the other stuff of the sponsors, official partners, the members, the sharing.
Yes.
the
and that you'll have to
With
do.
the awards,
Yeah.
my issue, not issue because it's not an issue, but the posting 3 times a day at the moment is because of the awards, right?
Yes.
You'll all know there's a million posts going out about the awards because we have 20 categories, we have 21 sponsors, we have all of the entrants that we want to give exposure to. There is so many areas that we have to post about. We can't do 1 post a week on the awards.
No.
Sorry, I meant about so you're posting about your awards, but if you're looking for ways to do get information about C2S out, because you were saying it's maybe you focus on just doing one pain point. Sorry, not saying don't post at all, just do your one. So it's not what I was saying.
The other thing, and the other thing is we can look at, and we'll talk about this a bit more next month, are any of you, just quick show of hands, is anybody using something called a custom GPT on ChatGPT within their organisation? We've got a couple of using custom GPTs, so we can talk about this a bit next month, but you can build a custom GPT, which you then have in your ChatGPT account if you're using ChatGPT, for example. And I said ChatGPT so many times it sounds weird in my head. You can train it, so you can say, use my brand tone of voice, speak as if I'm resonating with this segment of the market, consider that my customers are this type of person. So it's some of the stuff I was talking about earlier and what we were saying about audience profiling. And then you'll be getting that better quality of output and better quality of content. So if you are using it to amplify what you're doing or to generate more content, you can put a bit of legwork in up front to better train the tools so that you not then feel like you're dealing with something that even you're not happy with maybe because you're going, that's too off the shelf, or do you know what I mean? So there's things you can do there.
The more you put in of your own tone,
yeah, exactly,
style,
the better.
the more it picks up, and then it starts to be your PA.
Yeah, 100%.
Because your PA understands the style, the tone, but you have to put that in.
Yeah.
This style, in this tone, make it sound like this, do this, do that,
Yeah.
do that. That's the words. That's what I'm trying to say.
100%.
But create it all like that.
Yeah.
If you get out what you put in. Don't you?
Yeah. There's a couple. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say,
Go on,
we
Hannah.
just converted over to Copilot, and that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
I'm onboarding my Copilot.
That's it.
Yes.
So the more they get to know me and my style, then we should
That's
start
it.
to work more in harmony with
Yeah.
each other.
Wait till you have your first argument, then it'll.
Speaking of arguments, I like to pit them all against each other, believe it or not. I kind of feed them each with the same bit of information.
Oh, interesting.
And compare and contrast.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And I just sometimes think ChatGPT falls a bit short.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
GPT
Yeah.
is now embedded within Copilot.
They're, well, in terms of like baked in within the, I think they do, because at the end of the day, ChatGPT and ChatGPT responses is baked into a lot of AI tools that we're using, whether or not you realise it. So it taps into the ChatGPT knowledge centre and knowledge base to then provide the response. There was you had something. Was it connected to that? You were going to mention about Dom's experiment, or was that? Sorry, that wasn't connected to that.
Wasn't connected, but I can.
Yeah. Well, do you want to use that in a minute?
Yeah, we thought it was quite interesting. There's a colleague of mine, Dom. He did some experiments to look at kind of search behaviour, and he found that depending on the conversation, it kind of makes sense. Depending on the conversation that you had beforehand, you would get a slightly different answer. So. Let me give you a really cliche example, because we've got Valentine's Day coming up. So if I want to buy some fragrance for my partner, let's say, I might have a conversation with ChatGPT or AI and ask, I like these sort of smells. I like this sort of sustainable stance for the company if I want to purchase. So I will get some recommendations, but it would have listened to what I want. So it would have listened to the smells that I like, the fact that I want sustainability, all of these sort of things, and then will give me a product based on all of those
traits and characteristics.
Yeah, and then Dom did it again on another conversation, asking slightly different questions. So maybe I actually want more of a mainstream brand, and I want it to be like a really nice smell, and I want to make sure it's the most popular, and all a lot of men have it, so that he fits in. But yeah, so the results will be quite different. So I think it's really interesting to see how it's this conversation really is making a big impact on the results that you are getting. Or
that goes back to the audience.
Yeah,
exactly, knowing your audience. Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that my
sorry.
your question would be, we have trained our AI, tone of voice and all of that.
Yeah.
Which is great. It does produce better quality stuff. You've still got to check it.
Still got to check.
Sometimes it does it wrong, but I think some of the stuff you said today, you still don't know how it's landing out there, and the ecosystem is changing so fast.
Yeah.
If you don't keep up with what the ecosystem's doing, even if you are doing that, it's not necessarily going to do the job you want it to do.
Yeah.
Just some stuff I've written down what you said today. I think I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know some stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm also a big 100%, and I'm also a believer in, like, when it comes to me say about how it's like landing out there, I also think that if you're generating AI content or AI visuals, for example, I think it's absolutely okay to be open about the fact that it was generated with AI. I actually think that's quite powerful. I was looking at some of the DRPG stuff and the bits that Angela was referencing about kind of avatars and things, and personally I think it's absolutely fine to say this was created by AI. At least people know. I've seen some amazing marketing content. I went to a conference and their marketing department had created this AI bird's eye thing of like London. It was as if it had all been filmed on a drone. So we were at a venue in central London, Westminster, and we just watched this drone fly through London, go through the buildings, down the street, up and over. There was Big Ben, it went over the river, and then it kind of landed where we were, and it was on a loop on the wide screen before the conference started. But it had a big old thing at the bottom, and it said created with AI by the marketing department, which I thought was really powerful, because then we're all sat there going, God, look how good that is, you know what I mean? So I do think it's okay as well to be quite transparent, and I like that.
I think it's important to be transparent.
I
don't know about, like, personally, I don't like being fooled. I don't like AI content that's supposed to look like real content. That's when I get a bit... I love AI and I think it's so creative and amazing, and I love watching it. But when you're trying to tell me that it's not, that's when I have the issue.
Yeah.
On Sunday, in honour of Burns Night, we created some images of me running around Cleve Hill hunting haggis.
I'd like to see those.
When
please.
You say created images, these weren't AI, were they?
Yeah.
But it upset my 13-year-old niece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she thought haggis were real. And I showed her a picture.
Oh, right, yeah. Brilliant.
Someone sent me that joke when I was in Scotland last year. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion points or thoughts based on anything we've talked about today? It makes sense?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good.
It makes a lot of sense, and it does flip the way we think about how we get our message out there.
Yeah.
People see us.
Yeah.
I was just looking at, as you were talking, I was searching myself, and, or not myself, Black Mountain.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting what comes back. So having that conversation.
Interesting.
There's an awful lot of work to do. That's
That's
the outcome of today. Is
That's why everyone's so quiet.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of work. So excellent. Really, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Just a little quick show of hands if you enjoyed that. Did you find that
Oh, great.
Good. It'd be really awkward if they were all down, wouldn't it? Thank you.
Perfect. If you have the time, though, in all seriousness, do book on for the follow-up. We'll send across the deck. We'll send across a couple of bits of insight. We've also got a search optimization, AI search optimization audit and strategy kind of product that we're going to launch kind of a special rate for C2S members as well. So what we will do is when we send the follow-up, we can pop all of that in there and the info so that if you do have an interest in that, but even if you just want an informal conversation, you know where to find us. Cheers. Cheers, folks. Thank you. Oh, yeah, of course.